30th of August 2013, and you're listening to The Pod Delusion, a podcast about interesting things. I'm James O'Malley. Coming up this week, we answer the questions. War, huh? What is it good for? Well, it's good for giving us lots to talk about, because this week we're talking about, do humanitarian interventions actually work? And has anyone asked any academics? Why is there a taboo against chemical weapons, and why are they so disgusting? Should we be worrying about the Black Death? And should we boycott the Sochi Olympics? So far this week we've talked about a Russian-backed dictator being a bit of a dick, and a former Soviet possession having the plague. So how else has Russia been spoiling our fun lately? You may have heard about the shitstorm surrounding next year's Sochi Winter Olympic Games, which has faced calls for a boycott from some gay rights groups and supporters. But is a boycott the answer? If anyone knows the answer to this, it's going to be Marc, who works for the Gay Games, an organisation who organise a big inclusive sporting event every 4 years. Here he is to give us his take.
As you may have heard, this coming February, athletes and TV crews from around the world will be flocking to Sochi, a Russian Black Sea resort, for the Winter Olympic and Paralympic Games. As you may also have heard, Russia is not a very nice place, at least if you're any shade of queer, or if you're just a person who dares express the opinion that LGBT people are perhaps not a plague on society. Russia was already not a very nice place 7 years ago, when the International Olympic Committee chose it to host these games. But as history shows, while the IOC is quite attentive as to how a host will protect the rights of its sponsors, it's not so interested in how a host will protect the rights of the athletes, coaches, press, and spectators of the games. I'll note in passing that Principle 4 of the Olympic Charter declares that sport is a human right, and that Principle 6 of the Charter says that discrimination in sport is contrary to participation in the Olympic movement. So they say. The laws in Russia are horrible, and have arisen from and given license to an atmosphere of often violent homophobia throughout the country. The IOC's reaction to the situation has been less than stellar. They've engaged in a kabuki show with Russian authorities, feigning concern about the laws while ignoring Russian provocations, such as declarations that the law would of course be applied. Duh, it's the law. The IOC now accepts Russian assurances that no one in Sochi will be arrested for being gay, and that the law isn't discriminatory in any case because it applies to people both gay and straight. This is rather like proponents of America's anti-miscegenation laws claiming that they weren't racist because they not only prevented blacks from marrying whites, but whites from marrying blacks. The law is written to be intentionally vague and bans propaganda of non-traditional relationships. The IOC rules, in particular Rule 50, are similarly vague, again banning political propaganda. The advantage of being vague is that by avoiding stating clearly what behavior is prohibited, you encourage everyone to censor themselves. Is wearing a rainbow pin propaganda? Is saying you think people should be treated equally propaganda? Why should simply defending equality be considered propaganda in the first place? In the absence of clear rules, athletes and others seeking security will err on the side of silence. So how should the world, and in particular Olympic athletes, respond? Some have called for more general action against Russia. Some of these campaigns have potential for impact, such as travel bans on targeted Russian lawmakers and officials. Others seem to be more anecdotal, such as not drinking a particular brand of vodka that may or may not be Russian. I'm a member of the Federation of Gay Games, itself a partner in an international coalition aimed at taking action in response to the situation in Russia. We're a sports organization in charge of the Gay Games, the world's largest sporting event open to all, so our focus has been on Sochi, and more broadly on the responsibility of sport governing bodies such as the IOC. So what should an organization like the Federation of Gay Games and our partners in Pride House International do? Some have called for a boycott of the Sochi Olympics. We haven't, and we won't. A boycott will not work. We need to be ambitious and optimistic about what can be achieved, but should not be wasting our energy on initiatives that are doomed to fail. Likewise, for moving the Games to Vancouver or another location, or banning the Russian Olympic team from competing in Sochi, or requiring Russian athletes to compete under the Olympic flag rather than their national flag. An International Olympic Committee whose response to outrage over holding the Olympics in homophobic Russia is to remind athletes that they must not engage in political propaganda is hardly likely to be willing to take any of these steps. As organizations promoting the visibility of LGBT athletes in sport, we cannot tell athletes to stay home. And in particular, we can't tell LGBT athletes that their duty is to boycott these games. There are very few out athletes that will be participating in Sochi. Among them is Gay Games ambassador Blake Skellerup. He's a short track speed skater from New Zealand, and he's announced that if he's selected for Sochi, he'll be there as an out gay man, and he'll proudly wear his rainbow pin from the London 2012 Olympics. We applaud his courage and support his participation in these games. At the same time, the IOC has announced that it will double team with the Russian authorities. An athlete who engages in political propaganda can be arrested by the Russians and sanctioned by the IOC. We think back to the recent World Athletics Championships in Moscow, where a Swedish athlete who dared paint her fingernails in the colors of the rainbow was threatened by her own national federation. In Sochi, will a medal winner be disqualified for raising the hands of her rival on the podium? Will a skier be sanctioned for embracing his husband at the end of a race? Will a skater be punished for skating to Lady Gaga's Born This Way? Just as it would be absurd to consider an athlete wearing a Star of David on a chain, or an athlete crossing herself before her race as participating in religious propaganda, which is also banned under IOC rules, simply saying or showing you're gay cannot be grounds for disqualification, and the IOC must make this very clear immediately. Nor should saying that you value sport for all, or that sport should not discriminate, be considered political propaganda. Perhaps most absurd are some athletes themselves, who have likened speaking out for equality to a guest criticizing a host's dinner menu or interior decorating. Athletes in Sochi are not guests. The Russians bid for the right to carry out a commercial operation with the IOC. They are contractors, not hosts. Athletes have no choice about whether to go to Sochi or not. That's where the Olympics are taking place. They've not been invited by the Russians. They'll be selected by their national sporting bodies to represent their country. At the same time, we must never forget the millions of Russians who are living under the threat of these laws now, and who will continue to suffer long after the TV cameras leave Sochi. While the cameras are on, we need to use them to point out the absurdity of these anti-gay laws. That's why the Federation of Gay Games and its partners in Pride House International have launched the Same-Sex Hand-Holding Initiative. Some have called for athletes and others to wave rainbow flags or wear pink, but these efforts are difficult to coordinate, and they'd be blocked or punished by Russian and IOC authorities. Instead, we're calling on everyone in Sochi, not just athletes, to take every opportunity to hold hands with a person of the same sex. They'll be showing solidarity while highlighting how absurd a law about gay propaganda truly is. To raise awareness for this initiative, we're asking everyone to support the campaign by posting a photo of themselves holding hands with a person of the same sex on our photo blog at holdhandsinsochi.tumblr.com. That's holdhandsinsochi.tumblr.com. It's a small gesture, but you'll be helping every athlete, official, journalist, and spectator in Sochi learn that they can actually show that they don't think an athlete, or anyone, should be punished for saying they're gay. This is Marc Naimark for the Pod Delusion.
And that's just about it for this week's show. Do check out